Hi everybody, it's David Porter. And today I want to talk about cannabis, also known as marijuana, pot, reefer, grass, green, jade, spliff, spleef, shit, hubba, chiba. Goes by many names. The active ingredient, the main psychoactive ingredient in cannabis, sativa, that is cultivated cannabis, versus cannabis indica, which is wild cannabis, is THC, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. THC, attaches to CB1 and CB2 receptors. CB1 receptors, cannabinoid 1 receptors, are in your central nervous system, your brain and your spinal cord. CB2 receptors, cannabinoid 2 receptors, are in your peripheral nervous system, that is, anything outside your brain and spinal cord. Typically, it is going to be, the THC is going to be gotten on board or introduced into your body through burning the dried leaves and inhaling the smoke. Now, just the way some people like to smoke cigarettes that contain tobacco, some people will put cannabis in a rolling paper and roll it up. This is called a joint. Did everyone get that? Say it with me. Joint. Other people will put the dried cannabis in a pipe and smoke it that way. The pipe is commonly referred to as a bowl. Or people will use, it's kind of like a big cigarette filter, but it uses water instead of fiberglass to filter the smoke. This is referred to as a bong. Do you need to repeat any of that? Joint, bowl, or bong? Everyone say it with me. Let's get it right. Okay, obviously I'm being trolling and being very sarcastic. I'm assuming everyone already knows this. If you're going to be a drug and alcohol counselor, by the way, you need to be able to speak the language of sarcasm, because people are going to work you. The people that you see, the patients that you see, they're going to try to manipulate you. They're going to work you. They're going to gather information. They're going to look for naivete. They're going to look for doubt, hesitation, fear, weakness, stupidity. They're going to be searching for it, and they're going to use it to manipulate you. So you got to get accustomed to sarcasm and trolling and being able to recognize it quickly, or you're not going to get any respect. And you're not going to be taken seriously, you're not going to have any credibility, and you're not going to be effective on your job. And have I been deceived and manipulated and played? Hell yes. Yes. I'm not saying I'm immune to it. I'm just saying recognize it early on so you can cut it down as much as you can. Control and manage the frequency and intensity of it, because it's a regular part of being a drug and alcohol counselor. Okay, so inhalation of smoke particles from cannabis is a primary method of using THC. THC intoxication can be very subtle. You might not even realize the person is under the influence. Here's my impression of someone who has just smoked a great big fatty, that is a big thick joint. That's it. A faraway gaze, no expression, looking very relaxed, probably maybe not blinking their eyes much, and also something else, it dries out your mouth. When someone speaks, you'll hear that sound. You'll hear their lips smacking. Eyes will probably be very red, and they may move very slowly and draw out vowels when they speak. May have the munchies. Their hunger especially for sugary foods. Most of this stuff is pretty well known. I realize this is just more or less a review. The truth about THC is it's a relatively benign drug. It's the method of administration that is the most dangerous. THC itself, it's virtually impossible to overdose on it through smoking. You would succumb to smoke inhalation before you could overdose on THC by burning dried cannabis and inhaling the smoke. It is virtually impossible. People who smoke cannabis, generally speaking, do not become belligerent and hostile and aggressive like a lot of people do when they drink alcohol. Here's a joke. I got a joke. What's the difference between a drunk driver and a stone driver? A drunk driver blows through a stop sign. A stone driver is going to sit there for a half hour waiting for the stop sign to turn green. Now, that being said, all levity aside, I do not recommend smoking cannabis, period. Secondly, I do not recommend smoking cannabis or using any kind of psychoactive substance getting behind the wheel of a car. That is a very serious matter. People get hurt that way. People get killed that way. That's not a joke. I absolutely do not ever use any type of psychoactive drug and then try to operate a vehicle. That's reckless, dangerous. It's taking very unnecessary risks, and it can turn out really bad. It's no laughing matter. The dangerous thing about cannabis is the method of administration. Inhaling smoke into your lungs is not good for you. It will damage your lungs. It will lead to COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, emphysema, greatly increase your risk of cancer. It's just not good for you. I realize there are multiple other methods of getting the THC on board, such as vaping. Vaping is not much better for your lungs than smoking, is the truth. And edibles, whether it's brownies, cookies, butter, or gummies, there are a variety of ways to take THC by the PO, that is by the paraoral route, and that's going to result in different effects because it's going to have a slower onset of action and a longer duration of action than smoking. Again, it just is not something I recommend, because while you're going to be bypassing your lungs and not risking the long-term respiratory problems from smoking, you're still ingesting a drug which is going to slow you down. It's a central nervous system depressant. It's going to slow you down. There's such a thing as being too relaxed and too at ease. It is going to cause long-term cognitive dysfunction where you're going to have trouble retaining and recalling new information. It is going to cause problems with motivation levels and energy levels. You're not going to live up to your fullest potential. And yes, I know everyone has a uncle, cousin, brother, neighbor who smokes cannabis every day, all day long, and they're a multi-millionaire with a mansion and a yacht and a private jet and a supermodel for a wife, and they drive a Bentley and a Lamborghini on weekends, and they're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or a high-power attorney, or a neurosurgeon, or a rocket scientist. Yes, I know. And statistically, there probably are people out there like that, but somehow they are pulling off all that success despite smoking. That's anecdotal evidence, because I've heard that so many times. I know somebody who smokes all the time and they're doing great. Yeah, they probably are. I'm sure they are. There are people, but it's anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence is nowhere as meaningful as empirical evidence, because if you were to take 1,000 people who regularly smoke cannabis, they're not all going to be the picture of success. The majority of them are not going to be doing very much with their lives. They're not going to be doing everything they could be doing with their lives. It impairs you. I reside in Vermont, and Vermont is, we have decriminalized cannabis here. Before it was decriminalized, most people smoked it, and it's a very popular drug here. It's a very acceptable drug here. And I've often wondered, as I have lived and worked from one end of Vermont to the other, if people in this state would generally be more successful and be doing more if they weren't smoking, if smoking wasn't so prevalent. I wonder if our economy would be stronger. I wonder if people here are living up to their fullest potential, if Vermont is living up to its fullest potential, so to speak, in terms of economic growth, in terms of innovation, in terms of quality of life. It's just a theory. I don't know. So those are my thoughts on THC. Thanks for watching. Everyone, please hit subscribe and be safe.